Ahead, labor market improvement in the U.S. Alcoa takes a charge and expects a loss. And your chance at thousands of pieces of history. Reach out to your billionaire friends later in the show. Here's your morning briefing for this Friday, 200,000. That's our number of the day. It's the gain in U.S. non-farm payrolls reported by the Labor Department for December, topping the 150,000 consensus forecast. The unemployment rate also fell to 8.5%, near a three-year low. All of the gains coming from the private sector, where payrolls rose 212,000, the most in 3 months, while government employment contracted by 12,000. Our stocks to watch today include Dow component Alcoa, which is slashing its global smelting capacity by 12%. This will result in a restructuring charge in the fourth quarter that will push Alcoa into its first quarterly loss in 9 quarters. At Best Buy, the electronics retailer reported a small decline in comparable store sales in December, though it did reaffirm its outlook for the current fiscal year. In Europe, bond yields on the rise in Spain and even Austria. Let's go to Jamie McGeever in London. Jamie, Spain, of course, has been in the headlines for months, but what about Austria?
As you say, Rhonda, yes, Austria is in the news this week, and you should throw in a third country there, and that's Hungary. Hungary is, of course, not in the Eurozone, but it's in the EU, and Hungary is going through a crisis of finance and politics, the independence of the central bank being called into question. And that's important for Austria because Austria has huge exposure to Hungary, some 41 billion euros worth of exposure, that's its banks to Hungary. And this week, Austrian bond yields up 60 basis points in what has been only a 4-day week. This is the biggest rise in 20 years. And of course, Austria, still a AAA country, comes to the market next week when it auctions bonds.
Jamie, how are stocks faring? We've got this positive economic news out of the U.S. on jobs, but now we have these bond concerns in Europe.
Yes, and also what you've also had in the last hour since that jobs number has been the Fed's Dudley coming out with some what have to be termed dovish comments, and that has put a cap on some of the risk rally that we saw. Stocks are essentially where they were pre-jobs, still up around 0.5% on the day. Oil and energy, the outperformers because of the oil price rising, of course, this week on the Iran tensions. However, European banks again in the spotlight, underperforming this week, and European banks are down 0.2%. There are no shortage of bad news stories for Europe's banks. Spanish banks have to raise more capital. Austrian banks, as we discussed, are exposed to Hungary. And, of course, UniCredit from Italy had a share issue, had a rights issue this week. And since then, its shares have fallen by 1/3. So no shortage of talking points for Angela Merkel and Nicolas Sarkozy when they meet next week.
Absolutely. Jamie, thanks very much for that. Time now for our photos of the day. Not a good day in the water for this woman who braved chilly conditions to swim in icy water during a winter swim competition in China. A better day for this guy who conquered gnarly waves along the California coastline. A celebratory mood in Madrid for the annual Epiphany Parade, which is observed as the date when the 3 wise men visited the baby Jesus. And finally, this ice sculpture lights up the sky in preparation for the 13th Harbin Ice and Snow World in China. That festival luring tourists from around the world. Including 18 couples who decided to get married there. Who needs a long veil and train when you can celebrate your nuptials in a parka and gloves? They even roll out the red carpet for you. Participants said while it was cold outside, the ceremony warmed them inside. And finally, why you need your billionaire friend to help you own thousands of pieces of history. A New York auction house is putting up for sale a 5,500-piece collection of artifacts from the Titanic. The buyer has to take every last handbag and piece of metal found in the wreckage. An appraisal of the collection put the value at $189 million. Sorry, movie fans, it doesn't come with an afternoon with Leonardo DiCaprio or Kate Winslet. That's your morning briefing for this Friday. I'm Rhonda Schaffler. This is Reuters.